Hello. I want to talk to you about a story that I heard about George Washington. According to his nephew, George Washington was known to study the Bible and pray in the mornings and in the evenings pretty much every day. And I find it interesting that somebody who's so well known for being a man of high character and wisdom was committed to reading the Bible and praying. And it reminds me of something that I experienced in my own life about 30 years ago. I went to visit a friend of mine named Brian Shelton, and Brian and I were trying to figure out how to pass the time for the few days that I was going to be with him. And so Brian suggested that we go on a hike in the woods. And so we're walking along in the woods, and I was talking about something, and Brian was walking beside me, and I remember vividly that all of a sudden he leaned in and put his hand against my arm and kind of nudged me and said, "Sidestep." And even though it's been 30 years, I remember exactly what went through my mind in that moment. I thought, huh? Sidestep? And I looked down to see what it was that I was supposed to be sidestepping, and I saw this big black snake. And its head, it was between my feet, and its head was in the direction that I was walking. And so I did what perhaps many of you would have done. I jumped straight into the air and I yelled. And as I recall, I yelled in a very manly fashion. It was really more like a war cry. Now, if you were to ask Brian, he might say it sounded a little bit more like a scream, but as I recall, it was really quite masculine and very war cry-ish. So anyway, jumping was a good idea because it got me away from the snake, but the problem with jumping straight up is you pretty much come back straight down. So I landed and I still have this snake between my feet and I'm still facing the direction of where its head is and I still don't want to be. So I yelled in a very manly fashion, a second time, jumped straight in the air again and repeated my actions a third time until I finally had my wits about me well enough that I threw myself into Brian and pushed us both off the trail. Now, Brian might tell you that he was in my way as I was trying to run away, but as I recall, I really just wanted to be sure he was safe. And so it was really very valiant, very brave. It was pretty inspiring, I think, if anybody had been there to see it. But anyway, we get into the high grass and we walk up several feet and get back on the trail. And I look at Brian and he looks at me and he said, "That was seriously funny." And I said, "Funny? I could have been killed." And he said, "That snake wasn't poisonous." So here's the deal. Brian is an Eagle Scout. He's got all this wisdom for doing well and surviving when you're in the woods. I should have just listened to the voice of wisdom. It really would have cut down on my stress. It would have been a much more pleasant experience for me. The snake might still be alive today because I'm convinced if you were to go back to that trail today, you would find the snake still there where it must have died of heart failure for me jumping all around it and yelling so many times in a manly fashion. So, but if I had just listened to Brian, things would have gone much more smoothly. Because again, he is an Eagle Scout and he has that wisdom for survival in the woods. And so it is with the Bible. You've got all of this wisdom, and it can help us in so many ways. It can certainly alleviate a lot of the stresses in our lives and make things go much more smoothly. Reading the Bible doesn't make our problems go away, but it certainly can help us to navigate through them. So I wanted to leave you with that thought today, the importance and reliability of the Bible. Thank you for your time. Choose joy.